tell us a little bit. How did you get into design?
So I studied design at North Carolina State University and moved here about 4 years ago and started working for a development family. Purchased a couple big properties in the city, and I loved working for them. It kind of just happened naturally. And I worked for the general contractor, the family, and I went back and forth in between the designer, the architect, helping managing subcontractors, and working for them for about 2 years before I decided to go out on my own and start my own projects.
So in the beginning, was your passion design, or was it real estate development, or where was it?
In the beginning, I loved seeing a space be built. Like, physical progress was so satisfying to me. To start with a raw space and renovate, add to, develop into, you know, this originally was one house turning into 4 condos, creating a lot of value in a city where space is limited was really.
I know for me, like, are you pretty involved in, like, I know in my experience, I would find a list of a few different properties, and then I would look at the properties and I'd determine, okay, this is the work that needs to be done to these properties. Then I'd get a value based on that work, so I would know the after improved value before I bought the property. Do you kind of go through that process?
No.
You just see it and like, I want to do it?
Well, in terms of, for a development project, if I'm working for a developer, they absolutely assess what the value can be of the property, what the costs associated with the construction are going to be, and they work backwards from there.
Right.
For me, I have somewhat of a different, well, I guess I won't talk about that. I'll talk
Well,
about
I want to hear that. Just, we don't have to put it on camera, but
Okay.
I'm curious. Just,
what I do.
Rob, you can't sit like that.
huh?
You sit like a little more net like that.
Well, we're not filming, right?
Well, we are, but I'm just, in case you do say something that I really want to put in. I want
Oh, gotcha. So,
I know you're just talking now, but in case
Yeah.
you do say something that's gold, I can't have you sitting like a drunk.
okay, so what's your analysis during the selection process?
So when we first identify a property, it might come from a wholesaler, it might come from a real estate, another real estate developer, or we might identify the project by talking to homeowners
Right.
and buying the project from them. We first identify what you can do with the space. So what's the zoning, how many units can you make, what's the construction budget going to be, what are the out sale numbers, to try and work back to see if the project makes sense.
It's viable. Got it. And then, probably like most designers, you want to put too much in it.
I always want to spend
Way too
more,
Yeah.
but I always, the first thing I do,
I think it's your reputation. It's too. If you're putting something with your name
Right.
on it, you want to be known for quality.
people generally ask me how I get started choosing materials. And generally, when I start a project, I go into a space, before anything's happened, when a project is first taken over, I go into the space, I see what it feels like, what the neighborhood feels like. I think about who might live here, what they might enjoy.
That's useful.
What
Let's
kind-
talk about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was gonna do
Oh, I forgot it was still
that.
filming.
That's cool.
I think about what kind of furniture they're going to put in the space, where they're going to be living, where they're going to be spending their time. And then I start looking at materials. So when I first start looking at materials, I like to see, what's available and what's a good price.
Right.
Because I work in development, and sometimes, there might be a flooring that's available currently that I really like, that's a really good price.
Sure.
And I look for materials that have a really good value. So if I find a beautiful wide plank floor that for some reason there's an excess of, and it's a couple dollars less expensive, I can end up saving, this is a 4,500 square foot building.
Right.
You can end up saving $20,000
Right.
just on shaving a couple dollars off the material
Sure.
when you start adding up the square footage. So I look for material that has a really good value.
Right.
And working with a supplier like Asurface, you guys are really great at providing what's current, what's a good value, what's not seen that much in construction projects right now. Everyone's doing the subway tile look,
Right.
which I get it. It's safe, it's cheap, people will understand it as current, but you can be a little bit more creative than that. We went with a beautiful handmade, long 2x10 inch subway tile from you guys, and you get that classic feel, but it's not something you're going to see in other projects.
Right, sure.
It's not a tile I've seen in anywhere else. So I look for things that are good value, I look for things that are unique, but in line with what the end user wants.
Right, sure, and that can present challenges too. Tell me, do you have any advice for would-be real estate investors looking to buy and renovate property? What would your advice be?
Use good quality materials.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, we are building, as developers, we are rebuilding the city. We are building up old properties that maybe have been vacant for a long time or have been underutilized. And the hope is that we create value inside the city, beautiful places that are structurally sound, where people want to move into, and where they can enjoy and be safe and be happy. And I love walking into a space where developers used beautiful materials instead of just using,
Right.
Whatever the cheapest thing is to put in a space. Like really thinking about, when you renovate a property, hopefully it could be like that for 15, 20 years to be enjoyed. And if you use the right materials, it should be timeless.
Yep, agreed.
If you found this information useful today, click on the button below. Shoot us an email. We'll send you a free LVT binder. In it, you'll find useful technical information. You'll be able to really see and touch our LVT, get a better feel for how it'll fit in your next project.